Some of the potatoes sold in UK supermarkets have sparked complaints about rot, mould and strange chemical smells. Shoppers report potatoes that sprout within days, turn soft overnight, or taste nothing like real potatoes should. Yet these brands are still everywhere and serve to families across the country every single week. What most people don't realise is how long some of these potatoes are stored, or what they're treated with to make them last longer. Today, I'm exposing 8 UK potato brands you should avoid based on consumer reviews, storage practices, and supply chain concerns that rarely get discussed. I'll also reveal 3 potato brands I actually recommend and explain what separates them from the rest. And at the end of this video, I'll show you exactly how to spot bad potato brands yourself so you're never misled by packaging again. Number 8. Avoid Tesco own brand potatoes. Tesco own brand potatoes are one of the most common choices in the UK. They're affordable, widely available, and marketed as a simple staple. Many shoppers assume that because Tesco is such a dominant supermarket, its basic produce must meet consistent quality standards. The packaging often reinforces that trust, using clean designs and British farm imagery that suggest freshness and reliability. However, when you look beyond the shelf, a different pattern begins to emerge. Consumer reviews and public complaints frequently mention potatoes that spoil far faster than expected. Shoppers report bags where some potatoes appear fine while others are already soft, sprouting aggressively, or showing signs of mould. This kind of uneven quality often points to extended storage before the product even reaches the store. Another recurring complaint is smell. Some customers describe a musty or chemical-like odour when opening the bag, something fresh potatoes should never have. While UK regulations allow the use of sprout suppression treatments during storage, there is no clear indication on packaging explaining how long the potatoes have been stored or what treatments were used to keep them looking shelf-ready. Long-term storage can also change the potatoes themselves. Extended cold storage increases sugar levels inside the potato, which can lead to bitter flavours and excessive browning when cooked. This doesn't just affect taste, it changes how the potato behaves in the kitchen, often resulting in uneven cooking and disappointing meals. For families, this becomes an issue of trust and waste. Buying food that deteriorates quickly means more money thrown away and less confidence in what's being served at home. Because these potatoes are sourced from multiple suppliers, quality can vary significantly from one bag to the next, leaving shoppers with no reliable way to know what they're actually getting. And if this sounds concerning, the next brand on the list raises even more red flags. Number 7. Avoid Asda budget/smart price potatoes. Asda's budget potatoes are designed to attract shoppers looking for the lowest possible price. They're positioned as a basic household essential, often chosen under the assumption that potatoes are all essentially the same, and that the only difference here is cost. For many families, these bags go straight into the trolley without much inspection. Once purchased, however, many shoppers report issues almost immediately. A common complaint is excessive moisture inside the bag, sometimes visible as condensation. This trapped moisture creates ideal conditions for rot and mould, even when the potatoes appeared acceptable on the shelf. Some customers say they had to throw away multiple potatoes from the same bag within days. There are also repeated concerns about bruising and thin skins. Potatoes with damaged skins deteriorate faster and are more prone to spoilage, especially if they've already been through long storage periods. Reviews frequently mention potatoes turning soft or sprouting aggressively far sooner than expected, suggesting they may already be close to the end of their usable life when sold. Taste and texture issues are another recurring theme. Shoppers describe potatoes that cook unevenly, become watery, or break down too quickly. These problems often occur when potatoes have been stressed by poor handling, long storage, or cost-driven supply chain shortcuts. For households trying to save money, these potatoes can have the opposite effect. Faster spoilage leads to higher food waste, more frequent repurchases, and growing frustration. The low price on the label doesn't always reflect the real cost once quality and waste are taken into account, and the next brand on the list may surprise you even more, especially given its reputation. Number 6. Avoid Morrison's standard white potatoes. Morrison's often promotes itself as a supermarket with strong, fresh food standards, which is why many shoppers trust its standard white potatoes without hesitation. The branding suggests closer control over sourcing and quality, giving the impression that these potatoes are fresher than many competing supermarket options. Despite that reputation, customer feedback tells a more mixed story. Shoppers regularly report potatoes that look acceptable in-store but begin to deteriorate quickly once taken home. Complaints include soft spots developing within days, internal browning when cut open, and potatoes that sprout far sooner than expected. One issue frequently raised is inconsistency. Some bags contain potatoes that cook well, while others from the same purchase behave completely differently. This often points to variations in storage time and conditions before sale. Potatoes can be held in large-scale storage facilities for months, and while this helps maintain year-round supply, it can significantly affect quality by the time they reach the consumer. There are also recurring complaints about texture and flavour. Potatoes that have undergone extended cold storage tend to have altered sugar levels, which can cause them to brown excessively when cooked and develop an overly sweet or bitter taste. This makes them less suitable for roasting, frying, or even simple boiling, despite being sold as all-purpose potatoes. For shoppers who expect Morrison's produce to live up to its fresh food image, this creates a sense of disappointment and mistrust. The lack of transparency around how long these potatoes have been stored or how they've been treated means consumers have little ability to judge quality before buying. And as concerning as this is, the next brand on the list raises even more questions, particularly about how shelf life is prioritized over freshness. Number 5. Avoid Lidl value potatoes. Lidl's value potatoes are popular because they promise big savings on everyday essentials. The presentation is simple, the pricing is aggressive, and many shoppers assume they're getting the same product as anywhere else, just without the branding markup. But once these potatoes are taken home, problems are frequently reported. One of the most common complaints is how quickly they deteriorate. Shoppers describe potatoes becoming soft, shriveled, or sprouting within a very short time, sometimes just days after purchase. This often suggests that the potatoes have already spent a long period in storage before reaching the shelf. Another recurring issue is thin skin and surface damage. Potatoes with fragile skins are far more vulnerable to bruising during transport and handling. Even minor damage can accelerate internal rot, which isn't always visible until the potato is cut open. Many reviews mention perfectly normal-looking potatoes hiding dark or mushy interiors. Taste and cooking performance are also frequent points of criticism. Consumers report bland flavour, watery texture, and potatoes that fail to crisp or roast properly. These issues are commonly associated with potatoes that have been stored for extended periods or exposed to fluctuating temperatures. Because Lidl operates on tight cost controls, supply chains are often optimized for price and efficiency rather than peak freshness. While this keeps prices low, it can also mean less flexibility to remove borderline stock before it reaches consumers. For shoppers, the result is frustration and food waste. What looks like a bargain at the checkout often ends up costing more once spoiled potatoes are thrown away. And the next brand on this list shows that low prices aren't the only problem. Even popular family favourites have issues. Number 4. Avoid Aldi. Everyday essentials potatoes. Aldi's Everyday Essentials potatoes are a staple for many households. They're marketed as practical, affordable, and no-nonsense, the kind of product people rely on for weekly meals without overthinking. Aldi's reputation for quality at low prices leads many shoppers to assume these potatoes are a safe bet. However, customer feedback often tells a different story once the potatoes are taken home. One of the most common complaints is premature sprouting. Shoppers report opening bags only to find sprouts forming within days, even when the potatoes are stored correctly. This usually indicates that the potatoes are already old when sold, having spent long periods in controlled storage. Another frequent issue is internal quality. Many consumers describe cutting open potatoes that look fine on the outside but reveal dark spots, hollow centers, or soft, discolored flesh inside. These defects are often linked to long-term storage stress and temperature fluctuations, which weaken the potato from the inside out. There are also repeated mentions of inconsistent cooking results. Some potatoes break down too quickly, while others remain hard even after extended cooking. This uneven behavior is a common sign of mixed batches with different storage histories being sold together in the same bag. For families buying in bulk, these issues quickly add up. Sorting through bad potatoes, throwing away unusable ones, and dealing with unpredictable cooking results erodes confidence in what should be one of the simplest items in the kitchen. And while this is already concerning, the next brand on the list raises even more serious questions, especially because it's often seen as a step up in quality. Number 3. Avoid Sainsbury's Basics, Stamford Street potatoes. Sainsbury's Basics range potatoes are often perceived as a dependable middle ground. They're not positioned as premium, but they carry the weight of a supermarket brand many people associate with higher standards. For shoppers, that reputation creates an assumption of consistency and care, even at a lower price point. Yet many customers report that these potatoes don't hold up once they're brought home. Complaints frequently mention potatoes going soft or developing dark patches internally well before their expected use by window. Some shoppers describe cutting into potatoes that look fine on the outside, only to find discoloured flesh or a stale, unpleasant smell. Storage time appears to be a recurring issue. Potatoes in this range are often held for extended periods to maintain year-round availability, which can significantly reduce their quality by the time they're sold. Long storage doesn't just affect freshness, it alters the potato's internal structure, leading to poor texture and unpredictable cooking results. Taste is another area where dissatisfaction shows up repeatedly. Customers describe bland or slightly bitter flavours in potatoes that brown too quickly when cooked. These characteristics are commonly associated with extended cold storage, which increases sugar levels and negatively affects how potatoes behave under heat. For shoppers who expect to step up from the cheapest options, this can feel like a letdown. The lack of transparency around storage history and handling means buyers have little way of knowing whether they're getting recently harvested potatoes or ones that have been sitting in storage for months. And if this feels disappointing, the next brand on the list is even more troubling, especially given how widely trusted it is across the UK. Number 2. Avoid Branston potatoes. Branston potatoes are one of the most recognisable names in the UK. The branding leans heavily on heritage, British farming and quality, which gives many shoppers a sense of reassurance. For a lot of households, this is the brand people upgrade to when they want something better than supermarket own label. But behind that trusted image is a highly industrial operation built around long-term storage. Branston is one of the UK's largest potato suppliers, and to maintain year-round availability at national scale, potatoes are often stored for many months in climate-controlled facilities. While this keeps shelves stocked, it can come at the expense of freshness and eating quality. Consumer feedback frequently highlights issues that line up with long storage practices. Shoppers report potatoes that sprout unusually fast once brought home, even when stored properly. Others mention a dull, stale flavour and texture problems that make the potatoes unsuitable for roasting or frying. These complaints appear regularly despite the brand's premium positioning. There are also concerns around shelf life engineering. To keep potatoes looking sellable for extended periods, sprout suppression treatments are commonly used during storage. While these treatments are legal, they're rarely explained clearly to consumers, leaving most people unaware of how old the potatoes may actually be when they buy them. For many shoppers, the biggest issue is expectation versus reality. When a brand markets itself as high quality, but delivers potatoes that behave like they're already near the end of their life, trust erodes quickly. What people think they're paying for doesn't always match what ends up on the plate. Before we get to the number 1 brand on this list, the most concerning of all, take a moment to like this video and subscribe. It helps more people see this information and you won't want to miss what's coming next. Number 1. Avoid Albert Bartlett potatoes. Albert Bartlett is one of the most dominant potato brands in the UK. The name is everywhere. Television ads, supermarket shelves, and packaging that emphasises tradition, family values, and Scottish farming heritage. For many shoppers, this brand represents the gold standard of supermarket potatoes. That's exactly why the concerns surrounding it are so significant. To operate at this scale, Bartlett relies heavily on long-term, high-tech storage systems designed to supply potatoes all year round. Industry reports have openly discussed storage periods that can last many months, sometimes close to a year, depending on variety and demand. While this ensures availability, it also means the potatoes you buy may be far removed from when they were actually harvested. Consumer complaints frequently reflect this reality. Shoppers describe potatoes that look fine externally, but behave poorly once cooked. Excessive browning, odd sweetness, dry or mealy textures, and rapid sprouting soon after purchase. These are all common side effects associated with extended cold storage and shelf life management. Another recurring issue is taste. Many consumers say the flavour doesn't live up to the premium branding, describing potatoes as bland, inconsistent, or lifeless. This aligns with what happens when potatoes are stored for long periods and treated to suppress natural growth cycles. The biggest problem here is transparency. The packaging gives no indication of storage duration, treatment methods, or how long the potatoes have been held before reaching the shelf. Shoppers are paying for an image of freshness that may not reflect the actual condition of the product. When the most trusted brand on the shelf raises the most questions, it forces consumers to rethink assumptions about what quality really means in modern food supply chains. Now that you've seen the brands to avoid, it's time to shift focus, because not all potatoes are equal and there are better options. Recommended brand 3, Riverford. Riverford operates very differently from large supermarket supply chains. Instead of prioritising year-round uniformity, this brand focuses on seasonal sourcing and shorter storage windows. That alone makes a noticeable difference in quality. Potatoes are typically harvested closer to the time they're sold, rather than being held in storage for long periods to maintain constant availability. Customers consistently describe Riverford potatoes as firmer, more flavourful, and far less prone to rapid sprouting. Because the supply chain is shorter and more transparent, there's less reliance on heavy shelf life management techniques. This results in potatoes that behave more predictably when cooked and last longer at home under normal storage conditions. Another key difference is transparency. Riverford clearly communicates where its produce comes from and how it's grown. This level of openness builds trust and allows consumers to make informed choices rather than relying on branding alone. While these potatoes may cost more than budget supermarket options, many shoppers find the difference is offset by reduced waste, better taste, and more consistent results in the kitchen. And while this is a strong alternative, the next recommendation takes things a step further. Recommended brand 2, Able and Cole. Able & Cole is known for focusing on organic and responsibly sourced produce, and that approach carries through to its potatoes. Unlike large supermarket suppliers that rely on massive storage facilities, this brand emphasizes seasonal availability and shorter storage times, which helps preserve both quality and flavor. Customers often note that these potatoes have a noticeably better taste and texture compared to standard supermarket options. They tend to hold their shape when cooked, roast evenly, and don't develop the strange sweetness or excessive browning often associated with long-term cold storage. Another important factor is reduced reliance on post-harvest treatments. Organic standards limit the types of chemical interventions that can be used during storage, which naturally discourages excessively long holding periods. As a result, the potatoes are more likely to reach consumers in a fresher, less manipulated state. Transparency is, again, a strong point. Able & Cole provides clear information about sourcing and farming practices, which helps build confidence in what you're buying. For shoppers who care about how their food is handled before it reaches their kitchen, that clarity matters. While these potatoes aren't the cheapest option, many consumers see them as a worthwhile upgrade, especially when quality, consistency, and peace of mind are taken into account. And if you want the safest, most reliable option of all, the final recommendation might surprise you. Recommended brand 1, local greengrocers and farm shops. The safest and most reliable option for potatoes often isn't a national brand at all. Local greengrocers and farm shops typically operate with much shorter supply chains, meaning the potatoes you buy are far closer to their harvest date than anything found in a major supermarket. Because these sellers don't rely on year-round national distribution, they have far less incentive to store potatoes for long periods or aggressively manage shelf life. In many cases, the potatoes come directly from regional farms and are sold in smaller batches, which reduces the need for heavy post-harvest treatments. Shoppers frequently notice the difference immediately. Potatoes from local sellers tend to be firmer, more flavorful, and slower to sprout. They cook more evenly and retain their texture, whether roasted, boiled, or mashed. There's also a lower risk of hidden internal defects, since older stock is easier to spot and remove before sale. Another major advantage is accountability. When you buy locally, you can often ask where the potatoes came from, how recently they were harvested, and how they should be stored. That level of transparency simply doesn't exist with mass market packaging. While prices may vary, many people find the quality, reduced waste, and peace of mind more than justify the cost. When it comes to everyday staples like potatoes, fresher really does mean better. Now that you know what to avoid and what to choose instead, there's one more crucial piece of information you need: how to spot bad potato brands yourself. Once you know what to look for, bad potato brands become much easier to spot, even when the packaging looks reassuring. One of the biggest red flags is excessive moisture inside the bag. If you see condensation or feel dampness through the packaging, that usually means the potatoes have been stored for a long time or exposed to poor temperature control. Moisture dramatically increases the risk of rot and mould. Another warning sign is uniform perfection. Potatoes that look overly polished, unnaturally clean, or completely identical in size may have been heavily processed and stored for extended periods. Fresh potatoes often have minor imperfections, soil residue, or natural variation, and that's usually a good thing. Pay close attention to sprouting, even small eyes. If potatoes begin sprouting just days after purchase, that's a strong indicator they were already old when you bought them. Properly fresh potatoes should last weeks when stored correctly in a cool, dark place. Smell is another overlooked indicator. Fresh potatoes should have little to no smell. A musty, chemical, or sour odor when opening a bag is a clear sign something isn't right, even if the potatoes look fine at first glance. Labeling can also be revealing or misleading. Vague phrases like "packed in the UK" don't mean the potatoes were grown there. Look for clear origin information and avoid products that offer no transparency about sourcing. The less specific the label, the less likely the brand wants you asking questions. Finally, trust how the potatoes behave when you cook them. Excessive browning, odd sweetness, watery texture, or uneven cooking are all signs of long storage and quality degradation. Potatoes shouldn't be unpredictable. If they are, that's your cue to avoid that brand in the future. When you combine these signs with what you've learned in this video, you gain control back as a consumer. You're no longer relying on branding or price alone. You're making informed choices that protect your money, your meals, and your trust. If this video opened your eyes, let me know in the comments. Have you experienced any of these issues with supermarket potatoes? Or do you have a brand or local seller you trust? Your experience could help someone else make a better choice. And if you found this information useful, share this video with family or friends, especially anyone who does the food shopping. Most people have no idea this is happening. Finally, make sure you're subscribed. This channel is all about exposing everyday products that aren't as harmless as they seem and helping you make smarter, safer choices. Because once you start paying attention, you realize it's not just about potatoes. It's about what we've been taught to trust and what actually deserves that trust.